So, oh, sorry, you might have just got a notification this is being recorded. It just said. So, we just want to say a huge thank you for joining us. And I'm so delighted that you're about to hear from some incredible panelists about the work that they do at Shelter. And the main reason we want to talk to you tonight is to tell you about our work, because we're really, really proud of it. But also we want to say a huge thank you. The reason that most of you are here is because you have supported us in some way, whether that's coming up with a weird, wonderful and wacky fundraiser that you've managed to do while we've been in lockdowns, or whether you supported us with a much needed regular gift, or some of you have got involved in our campaigning work. And everything that all of you have done has had one aim. It's so that we can continue to help people who are facing homelessness and bad housing. And that's now, during the COVID-19 crisis that we've had the past 18 months, but also way beyond that. So a huge thank you. I cannot begin to tell you how grateful we are. And the services that you're about to hear about, to be honest, quite simply just couldn't happen if we didn't have support from people like you. What we've sort of faced in the last 18 months is obviously an unprecedented public health crisis, but unfortunately that collided with an already existing housing emergency. And for a lot of us in the past few months, our homes have become a real central component in the fight against coronavirus. It's the place we were told to stay to keep safe. It's the place we have to go when we have to isolate. But the reality is that there are lots of people who weren't able to do that. And even before this outbreak started 18 months ago, there were millions of people across the country who didn't have a safe and secure place to call home. And you're about to hear about some of them and how we've been helping them. So I'm going to be joined by 4 brilliant people today who are going to tell you all about their fantastic work. Like I said, I'm really excited you're going to get the opportunity to meet them. They're from all across our services, both in England and Scotland. And there's going to be an opportunity later to ask our CEO, Polly Neate, any questions you might have about our work. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, there is a bit that says Q&A. Do go in that and type any questions you either have for Polly or any questions in general. And we have got staff in the background who might be able to answer those for you. So thanks again for coming along, and a huge thank you in advance to our panelists who I'm chatting to today. For taking time out of their amazing work to come and talk to us. So it gives me great pleasure, first of all, to introduce you to Rachael, who should be joining me any moment now. And she works in our hub up in Glasgow, working with families on a project called the Our Journey Home project. So we'll just wait a moment and Rachael should be popping up. Hello.
Sorry about that. Hey guys, hey everyone.
That's all right. It's the technology. I still can't get used to it even after all this time of working from home.
Oh no, same.
But
Yeah.
everything seems to go smoothly so far, so that's good. But thank you for joining us. So as I just
Thank
said,
you so much for having me.
you work up in Glasgow in the hub there, and on the Our Journey Home project. So what is that project? What does that involve?
So the Our Journey Home project is a collaboration project between Shelter Scotland and Aberlour, Scotland's children's charity. So we work with families based in the south of Glasgow. It's kind of a holistic approach. So I'm the housing advisor and I work with the child and family support worker. So it's a really great project to be able to kind of delve into all aspects, because a lot of our clients, it's obviously housing issues primarily, but it's never just housing. There's usually a lot happening. So yeah, we're a small team. There's 4 of us altogether, 2 housing advisors and 2 family and child support workers. And yeah, it's just going great, really busy, really wide variety of referrals. We get referrals from health visitors, social work, self-referrals, community links practitioners. Yeah, all across the board.
So it's such a vast range what you do. I know sort of from speaking to you before that quite often quite a few of your clients have experienced domestic violence, and
Yeah.
quite often there's children involved as well. And are you able to give us any examples of a family who you've helped manage to sort of get away from an abusive family member, and what sort of happened in that situation?
Yeah, definitely. Unfortunately, yeah, it's something we see a lot in our cases. One particular case that it was unfortunate it happened during lockdown. So we were able to meet the client face to face at the very beginning of March before everything went into lockdown. And she had approached us. She needed to leave the property, but she herself had medical needs, mobility needs, and her son had additional support needs. So due to that, she didn't want to move until she knew it would be a permanent property to allow her and her family to feel safe and settled. But a couple of months later, unfortunately, the abuse had just escalated to a point where she just had to leave there and then. And then it was a case of making a homeless application. And thankfully, a suitable temporary flat was sourced. And within 3 days, she was out, which was great. And it was great. The property had a garden, which was great for like the children, and it was close to the school. And yeah, just thankfully, we were able to get her out safely. There was just many layers to that. There was a language barrier as well. It was very difficult to contact the clients. You didn't know if the perpetrator was in the property. It was a very stressful time, but
Yeah.
thankfully it was a good outcome.
So that must be a really tricky thing about it, I guess, is trying to help these people. But I guess if the abuser found out that they were trying to do this,
Yeah,
that would obviously make things a lot worse. So there's a
definitely.
lot of sort of trying to avoid that while trying to help them. So yeah, so many
Yeah, for
barriers. It's
sure.
not sort of as simple as just, yeah, come in whenever you want and we'll chat about what we
Yeah,
can do. It's
yeah.
really tricky.
Often with the clients who are experiencing domestic abuse, we tend to have a lot of safeguarding in place. So
Right.
there'll be alerts saying like no post can be sent here. If I'm phoning, I tend to wait until the person answers before I say anything.
Yeah.
If I get a call, it tends to be, "Hi, this is Rachel," because Rachel could be anyone, you know. I
Yeah.
don't if I'm aware of the situation, I don't leave voice messages. I tend to call off an unknown number just so I can't be traced back.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, it's a lot of barriers for you, but that's such a lovely happy ending for that
Yeah,
family, and to have a garden to play in and everything, and just to be safe. It must just be a
it
huge
was
weight off that woman's shoulders
it
to know.
really it really was. And even because obviously before this happened, every time we'd speak, she was obviously very like distraught, like very stressed, very nervous on the phone. And I remember the day she moved in, I phoned her to ask, how it went and how things were. And she was like laughing, saying how much she loved the house, like how happy she was. It was amazing. It was a completely
Oh,
different part, like speaking to a completely different person.
yeah, yeah, and it just it just shows how, if there wasn't the option to get to a safe home, obviously, it would have been very difficult for her to take her children away from that person. So
Oh yeah.
the fact that you're able to help with that, and then, yeah, just I guess it's completely changed her lives and her children's lives. So that's absolutely amazing. I know, as well as sort of a lot of people who have suffered or been part of domestic violence, you've also had quite a few people in the past 18 months who've needed their help because they've been impacted by COVID, or COVID has somehow got in the way of, it's made it a bit more complex finding them a home. Have you got any examples of that and how you've managed to help people?
Definitely unfortunate for, I'd say, all of our clients. COVID has really impacted their lives. But one particular client I remember, she she lived with her husband, my client, and her husband, and their 3 young children lived on the third floor, like in a tenement flat. And unfortunately, her husband got COVID-19, and j- like just really affected his mobility to the point where he couldn't walk more than 10 steps, like kidneys, like the works, like effectively he was housebound because of this. He was in hospital for a long time. So we were able to support the family to make a homeless application. And that unfortunately just was a really difficult time for the family. They had to move away. The area they lived in, there was like a great sense of community. So they had to move. The children had to change schools. It was a lot of like uprooting for the family. Um, and when they moved to the temporary accommodation, unfortunately, there were a lot of problems with the neighbors. And I remember my client would obviously be very upset on the phone. But she told me one day that her daughter had made a new friend at school. So I was like, oh, that's lovely. That's great. And she said, Rachel, we're Muslim, but my daughter's made this Christian friend. I said, oh, that's nice. And she said, my daughter's friend told her, if you write a note to Jesus and like ask Jesus for something, he'll give it to you. And I said, oh, right. she was, we respect all the prophets. I said, oh, that's lovely. And she said, my daughter asked for a house with the garden. And I said, unfortunately, I can't guarantee a house with a garden, but thankfully, a few weeks later, they were actually offered a property with 2 gardens and very nice neighbors. So that was a really great ending to that. And just because of all the turmoil the family went through with having to move and then all the problems with the neighbors and the school, it was great. It was a really lovely outcome.
So she will be writing to Jesus more often when she wants things.
I might give it a bash too,
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that's the thing about the work that you do, isn't it? Is that there's, it's obviously such heavy topics in a way, like, the father who was really ill with COVID, and that must have been a really scary time for the family, because as well as their housing situation, like, was he going to make it? Was he not? And then,
Yeah.
with topics like domestic violence, but then there's children among that are just so innocent and obviously have done nothing wrong and completely deserve to have a safe home to grow up in. And because I know it can sort of impact their education and things if they're in awful temporary accommodation where they're not able to sleep and things like that. So no, that's such a lovely story, and definitely the fact that she got the garden is such a happy ending for them. So
it was brilliant.
Yeah, no, that's so lovely. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. It's so good to just hear about what you're doing up there, and just those couple of examples just show the difference that it makes to families, and how complex the situations are.
Yeah.
When it does involve families, it's obviously a lot more complex than sort of trying to get an individual a home. It's thinking about things like schools and everything like that. So thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you.
I
Thanks for
think
having me.
everybody's sort of thinking that it's absolutely brilliant. I'm really happy to have heard about that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Well, that was absolutely brilliant. I'm sure you'll agree. It was great to hear from Rachel and hear all about the services happening up in Glasgow involving families. Obviously, there are lots of other services that happen in our Glasgow hub, and that's just one example of where there is a real need for our help. So thank you to Rachel. Now, next up, we are going to talk to Harriet, who is joining us from the Northeast, who works in our legal services up there. So this is going to be really interesting to hear about how she's able to help people through the courts and things like that. So I think Harriet should be appearing on the screen any moment. We'll see what happens. Sometimes the technology can be a little bit slow. Here we go. Hello. Hi, Harriet. Hello.
Myself.
Yeah.
Oh,
no, still not got used to unmuting ourselves either. How are you?
No. I'm fine, thank you, Daisy.
Good. Thank you so much for joining us. I think it's a really important aspect of our work for people to hear about is the sort of legal work that happens, and it's obviously very complicated for a lot of families when they come to us, is how to tackle that system, because it's not made easy for people, is it? So I guess we just want to sort of know a little bit about what you do. So what type of cases do you get involved in?
I get involved in quite a wide range of cases, anything from someone who might be facing the bailiffs come around to a victim the following day, through to someone who is struggling to get the local authority to provide them with temporary accommodation when they've made a homeless application, through to disrepair cases involving items as sort of varied as mould and damp, through to rat infestations, and through to illegal evictions, so where someone's landlord is trying to make them leave or force them leave, or has changed the locks and they need to get back in. So it's a variety of work, some of which will involve court action, some of which won't. And so it really can be just about anything that might come through on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, no, it sounds that way. It's like, I guess no day is the same for you. It's always different things that people need help with.
Absolutely, yes, yeah.
Yeah. So how is your work funded then?
Well, I'm funded mainly through legal aid, and that does restrict some of the work that we can do as solicitors, because legal aid is only available for certain types of legal work. So it does include things like possession cases, so that's eviction either by a private landlord or a social landlord. It includes things like warrants. It includes certain parts of the homelessness application process, mainly challenges, as you can imagine, to that. That can go right up to the High Court and beyond, that sort of work. But unfortunately, some of what I do doesn't fall within that sort of type of funding. So only certain types of disrepair can be covered by legal aid, and that's where there is a serious risk to health. And unfortunately, the bar is set very high on that. You're really looking for something where you're going to need almost an immediate injunction to make a landlord do some works where legal aid is going to be available. So in those cases where it's not going to be available for legal aid, we can offer a conditional fee agreement, which is often called a no-win, no fee agreement. And in those circumstances, we would offer that on the basis that all we look to do is recover my costs from the other side in the case, and obviously look to recover the client their compensation. And very occasionally I'll do cases on a pro bono basis, because there are certain cases that just can't be covered either by legal aid or to some extent a conditional fee agreement, just purely because of the nature of those cases. One particularly, this was just before lockdown, where the social landlord was trying to get or trying to use a particular process known as a Part 8 claim to force a client into letting them into her property, because they had concerns, we think, around the fact of the state of the property, although all it turned out was that she'd missed one appointment to have the gas boiler serviced. But this type of legal action is not something that's covered by legal aid. She wouldn't be able to use the court duty scheme if she ended up in the court on her own, and the cost of employing a solicitor herself. She was a supermarket worker working on a 0 hours contract, 16 hours a week. There's no way she could have afforded a solicitor to represent her. And because I was able to get involved and deal with the local social housing provider, they withdrew the proceedings relatively quickly. But without that, it's likely she would have been facing an order that would have forced her to let them into her home around the time of the first lockdown. And also she would have faced quite substantial legal costs, none of which was necessary at all. So that's an example of where we do work that just needs to be done by a solicitor, but just can't be covered by any other forms of funding.
Right, yeah, okay. And that must have been such a sort of panic for her before you sort of started helping her, to think, how on earth can I get out of this? And it, like you said, it's a real simple thing that led to that happening. That yeah, so I imagine she was incredibly grateful and was able to sort of get that help from you. So
I think so, because most people, when they receive court papers, find it an extremely frightening experience. I mean, it's something you have to take very seriously. And realistically, landlords shouldn't be issuing any form of claims lightly, particularly social landlords. But we do have one particular social landlord that does take quite draconian action against their tenants on a regular basis, and we're trying to move forward with regular challenges to that, to try and capture those cases and actually, ensure that, or look really for ways to try and get these social landlords to change their ways, change how they are operating, that makes them much more tenant friendly. And also, ultimately, again, it comes down to cost. It would save everybody, including the courts, lots of time and money if they didn't pursue these avenues and they use a form of mediation or something else instead.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. So it's just a waste of everyone's time and money to be pursuing them. So you sort of mentioned briefly a little while ago that sometimes you spend time in court. Do you spend a lot of time in court?
No, I don't. I think that's often, people think that we do spend a lot of time in court, but actually the vast majority of the work that I do is to avoid getting to any form of final court hearing. I will often be attending the first hearing of a possession case because our clients often don't come to us early enough for us to intervene before the first hearing, or certainly if it's an application to suspend a warrant, there will more likely than not to be a hearing. But most of what my time is spent trying to negotiate with the landlord or the other side, if it's a local authority, to try and resolve the matters without getting to a final court hearing. And that works in the vast majority of cases, that they never get to a final hearing because you're able to come to an agreement that is in the client's best interest.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, any case that goes in front of a judge has an inherent risk that you're not going to get the outcome that you want. So being able to negotiate an outcome that everybody's happy with, it's more likely that if it's some form of suspended possession order, you're going to end up with a client that's able to comply with it and understands how to comply with it, than one that's handed down by a judge and nobody really understands what it's all about. So that's really what I spend the vast majority of my time dealing with.
Yeah, and also for the clients as well. It's not a nice thing to be going into court. That's very scary for a lot of people when they haven't necessarily done anything wrong in the first place. So yeah, definitely, as long as you can avoid the court, that's better, isn't it? Yeah, try and wrap it up before that.
Definitely, yes. I mean, most people have never been to court before, and if they have to go, and I am obviously involved in that, then I'll spend as much time as I can preparing them for that. Unfortunately, there's obviously this view that it's all judges in wigs. There's all gavels being bashed left, right and centre, and the county court is nothing like that. But actually, I think that makes it a scarier experience because it's not what you're expecting when you actually get there.
Yeah.
And it's certainly very different to, say, the Magistrates' Court or the Crown Court.
Yeah, because I guess that's what a lot of people do associate with court, because if you've never been, that's what you see on television programs and stuff, is it's very big and scary, and then you turn up and it's completely different. It could completely throw people, I guess. So yeah, no,
Yes,
it's good to hear that you sort of try and help people before it gets to that point. I guess that's the main thing. And how long would you say a typical legal case takes, or does it really vary? Or
it is extremely variable. Imagine in the case of a warrant, that's normally dealt with within a few days, because unfortunately we normally get people approaching us within a couple of days of the warrant being executed. So that's an example of something that's over very quickly and resolved very quickly. But many of my cases take a very long time to sort of work their way through the courts. Cases where we have counterclaims against a possession claim. So there's what's known as a disrepair counterclaim. So the landlord wants saying that there's rent arrears, and the tenant says, well, there may or may not be rent arrears, but my boiler's been broken for 3 months and there's been all of these other problems. And those cases can take a long time to get through the courts, partly because the courts are extremely busy and it takes a long time for these cases to be listed. But then other cases that I deal with, so judicial review cases that involve homelessness, you can get an immediate relief for a client with, say, an injunction, but the actual case itself, again, is going to take a long time to be listed because the courts are very, very busy. So realistically, most of these cases will take 6 to 8 months. If they go to a final trial hearing, they'll win their way. And I mean, actually, in terms of ongoing litigation I've had, COVID hasn't had a huge impact, but I'm expecting cases going forward to take a lot longer to be resolved if they have to go through the court process itself, which again, hopefully the impetus then is on the parties trying to settle the matters before we have to rely on the courts to actually list anything for us.
Yeah. Wow, it's just, I think a lot of people will sort of be surprised at how much goes on, how different it can be, the different sorts of problems people come with. I mean, we had a couple of examples there of, and I'm sure, like you said, no day is the same as the day before. So yeah, no, it's absolutely fantastic work, and I think there's obviously a lot of people that need that sort of help, because as we've said, it's very scary to receive a letter from the courts or to get have your landlord threatening any kind of legal action, and it's so difficult to navigate. So we're very fortunate to have people like you working at Shelter who are able to help them navigate it, and I guess sort of put it more simply, to put their mind at ease, because for a lot of people, I mean myself included, I would not really understand the the legalities of it all, and that can be quite frightening. And I imagine probably a reason why people might sort of ignore letters that are coming through and just sort of try and brush it under the carpet, which of course then can escalate. So thank you so much, Harriet. Really grateful for you coming along today and talking about the work that you do. Yeah, I'm sure I can see in the chat people are very, very excited about everything that's going on. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Harriet. So that was great to hear about. That just shows, just the two people we've heard from, it's completely different, the work that they're doing, but both so important and involving such complex cases. Now, next up, we're going to speak to a couple of people in Birmingham, and I'm going to start with Andrew, who works at our Birmingham hub, and helps people who are rough sleeping, and talk to him about some of that. So he should be popping up at any moment now.
Can you see me?
Hello, I can see you. Yeah, yeah, you're all right.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming along.
No worries.
Again, another brilliant service we're about to hear about. And there's a lot that goes on in the Birmingham hub, and the work that you do is mainly with entrenched rough sleepers, I believe.
Yeah, that's correct.
So can you tell us a little bit about your role and a general overview of the work that you do at the hub in Birmingham?
Yeah, so my name's Andrew Shelton. I'm the local stakeholder manager for the Shelter and Network Rail project. So what that consists of is supporting, our most entrenched or, our vulnerable individuals in and around New Street Station. We have a training and volunteer coordinator, and the training that's been devised for Network Rail is kind of on their needs. They said that Network Rail stated that they kind of needed a better overview and a better understanding of substance misuse, of kind of mental health, all the stuff that they see within the station. They just wanted a better perspective on that and an understanding of it. So we've got our training and volunteer coordinator who kind of devised the training and then delivers that then to the Network Rail staff. We've also got our two lived experience engagement workers. So what they do is it's kind of a two-pronged approach kind of thing, the engagement workers. So the one part is getting referrals and building trust and rapport with the individuals at the station, and then the second part then is kind of supporting them to either maintain accommodation that's been provided for them, looking at community support, engaging within community activities, looking at hobbies and interests. And then we've also got our lived experience volunteers. So they generally speak, once our engagement workers have done like the crisis management kind of work with them, then they'll be passed on then to our volunteers to kind of the maintenance side, whether it be engaging in stuff like mutual aid, whether it be like Alcoholics Anonymous, or different hobbies and different interests. So that's what the team consists of.
So, and it sounds like it's real sort of like wraparound care as well. So like you said, it's not as simple as, okay, let's get them into a home. It's making sure they sort of stay there. And like you said, there might be sort of some substance misuse and things like that. So, and sort of helping them get back in the communities and build their lives again, I guess. That's what it sounds like you guys do, which is absolutely amazing. So how did this sort of, the partnership with Network Rail, how did it come about? What does it involve? So do you go in and sort of give training on how to speak to people who are rough sleeping, or? So
the partnership, so to be fair, the partnership that we've got with Shelter, Network Rail, British Transport Police has just been, it's been amazing. We've all come together, we've all got the same kind of intentions. And all want to deliver the same kind of support, which is tackle roots out of homelessness and give vulnerable clients the support they need to kind of to not only get accommodation, not only maintain accommodation, but kind of live that productive life that they want to live. The individuals don't want to be at the station begging. They don't want to be homeless. They don't want to be lost. And not seen. We kind of all come together really as a partnership to support these individuals, to get them to where they want to be. which is the life that they kind of deserve.
Yeah, no, definitely. When you sort of mention sort of they don't want to feel not seen, I guess that must be a really big thing, because I guess a lot of people do just walk past them, especially in a big station like that, and then the sort of the impact that has on somebody's value on themselves and everything must be so difficult. So I think there's obviously a lot of work that you guys have to do to help build them back up, which is amazing.
And I think it's great as well that's where we've got champions as well within Network Rail. So they are Network Rail employees, but they are flying for the flag for this service. So they're kind of the ones supporting the individuals there and then. If they come across an individual that needs support, then they will then contact our engagement worker, and then the process will start from there. A referral will then take place, risk and needs, and then the support to carry on.
Yeah.
So it's worked really well so far.
Yeah, no, it sounds brilliant. So what sort of support do they need? I mean, you've touched on that a bit, but is there sort of like a typical journey they'll go through, or
Say that again, sorry.
what sort of support do they normally need from your team then? Is it sort of, I guess to start with, you just build up a relationship with them a bit, and then
Yeah, so that could start off as just our engagement workers doing outreach in and around the station. They might locate an individual that needs support. A referral will be filled out, and then they'll sit down and do the risk and needs. They'll look at an individual support need, and they'll kind of tailor that to what support is needed. And that can be anything from a bank account with the partnership that we've got with HSBC, and it's not only just a bank account, because once they've got a bank account, that means they can receive benefits.
Right. Yeah.
Benefits that means they can start looking at money management.
Yeah.
It could be getting them engaged with the local substance misuse provider within Birmingham, attending appointments with them, and just making them feel comfortable, to be able to go there and engage with that service. With mental health referral and assessments, supporting them with individuals with that, and then also the kind of tailored housing as well that we've got for individuals that, whether that be, some recovery housing, what sometimes clients ask for, predominantly housing that focuses on mental health. So yeah, there's lots of support aspects that go with it.
All sorts that you need to do. And like, the bank account thing, I think, is something that a lot of people wouldn't think about. This, you can't really in this country do much at all without a bank account, but it's very difficult to get one without having an address. So
and quite a lot of the homeless community don't carry identification around with them. It's been lost along the way. So yeah, it can be just something as simple as the letter that we've got, and our engagement worker attending the appointment with them and setting their bank account up with them to then get their benefits. So then it's kind of help with money management. They can able to provide food. They're able to buy themselves food. Just from one simple thing. But yeah, the end of support just goes on. It will literally be anything that the client feels they need support with. Our engagement workers will be there to support them.
Yeah, because I guess it could take just sort of a little thing sort of going wrong that completely sort of topple their new life, and make, if anything, sort of makes it difficult. It's then harder for them to sort of get back to it, kind of thing. But so I believe there's something around a 6-month rehab opportunity that you can offer to clients. What does that involve, and what is that?
So what was identified within within this project and in the rough sleeping community was that quite a lot of our the individuals, our clients, had substance misuse issues, and so what we wanted to do, we wanted to kind of have a streamlined approach to get individuals into rehab, and just a straight streamlined pathway, to give the individuals 6 months of residential treatment. And it gives the individuals like a foundation to not only kind of get clean, to stay clean, but also looking within that 6 months, they'll be sitting down with psychologists and therapists, and be looking at their looking at their trauma within, of like, why did they ever use substances, like what was the reason they ever picked up, and and helping manage their emotions when they're not using.
Yeah.
So it just gives someone like a foundation. It gives someone just some stability, some some time, a period
Yeah.
to just focus on them. Allow them to kind of get a proper medical detox.
Yeah.
And then just try and move forward with their life.
Yeah. Because, like you say, there probably is quite a lot of trauma in there, that have led to them sleeping at the station and using, and it's trying to sort of get to the bottom of that, isn't it, rather than just saying, right, off you go. So I feel like that gives them real time to, and have that support
It
for
does.
that length of time is brilliant.
And then while being in the rehab, they'll be making new connections. They'll also be around people that want the same as them, which is like to get
Yeah.
clean and to stay clean. So within that, new friendships are formed. So then when they do leave after the 6-month period, they've started to build healthy relationships with other individuals. So which will then deter them from wanting to go back to rough sleeping. And
Yeah.
they'll kind of see the benefits of being clean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So,
massive. It's
yeah,
massive.
that's such a huge change to their lives to then enable them to stay in a safe home. And I know that you and some of your team, you mentioned before, some of them have lived experience of homelessness. Do you mind telling us a little bit about that and how that helps you build those relationships? Because I guess for a lot of people, it's very difficult to know how to approach people or how they can help.
Yeah. So that's fine. Like you said, I have lived experience myself. So I was, an individual as well that was homeless. I had substance misuse issues. I was offending. And I had poor mental health at the time. And it was, the barrier for me was always, people don't understand how I'm feeling, or that's what I told myself. You don't understand.
Yeah.
And then one day I had someone standing there in front of me with the evidence there saying, "You ever do? Like I know what it's like to have substance misuse issues. I know what it's like to have to get up every day and find ways and means to get drugs.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
what it's like."
Yeah.
And it kind of really made me think at that point of, well, this person's in front of me, and
Yeah.
they're a paid member of staff, and they have managed to turn their life around. So
Yeah.
it's not just hearsay. It's actually, it was in front of me. It's possible. It's possible to find a new way of life. So I think for me, the way that it works is the trust and rapport is built quicker, because the barriers are then smashed straight away, in a sense.
Yeah.
As in, yeah, we do know how you feel, and yeah, we do understand, and this is, and the engagement workers was like, I know how you feel, and this is what I did, and this
Yeah.
is what I carry on doing to stay clean,
Yeah.
to live this way of life. And that, what we've found is the barriers do seem to have been broken a lot quicker, because it's in your face that, yeah, it's possible.
Yeah.
Just, if this is the suggested things, this is what I did, and I was no better than you. I was just exactly the same as you.
And that must be a huge part of it, like you said, that it's possible, because it must feel like at that point it is impossible. It's such a long road ahead to get to that point that it can seem like it's
Yeah.
never going to happen. So
Well,
then to see somebody stood there in front of you saying that was me, and now here I am.
yeah. Well, quite a lot of what we do here from the engagement workers is that the individuals will say, well, I don't see it. What I presume is that somebody's gone to prison, or they've died. Like,
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody have this lived experience and live
Yeah.
to tell the tale of, this is what I did and this is what I do now, and this is how I maintain my recovery from
Yeah.
whatever it may be.
And I guess that's sort of becoming more common now in your area, because there's that help and support for them. And yeah, because I mean, I guess do you think for a lot of people they've got very used to that life, and therefore it's difficult to accept help as well?
Yeah, and I also think as well that the individuals have lost trust within services. So
Yeah.
they may have reached out for support before,
Yeah.
and that they didn't get the support they felt they needed, so which has then brought resistance around kind of wanting to get support anymore, or feeling that everyone's just going to leave them anyway.
Yeah.
No one's really going to want to help them. So yeah, I think it can be harder, but then I also think as well, with the support there, you know, and people there, like with the empathy and showing care and really wanting to help, that change is definitely possible.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, it really is a amazing service, and I think, you know, it's quite easy when, I'm sure a lot of people listening, you know, hearing from Rachel earlier about families, it's very easy to sort of feel empathy for them straight away, whereas it's, you know, you really have to delve a lot deeper with entrenched rough sleepers, don't you, and really sort of, you know, realize that there is trauma back there somewhere, and it's you know, they need help as much as anybody else. And I think that's why this partnership is so brilliant, because you know, training up the staff at the stations to sort of realize that, and realize that actually it's not a problem to get rid of, it's you know, with some people we can actually help and help them build their lives. It must be incredibly rewarding for you and for the staff there to see that at the end, you know, somebody who's sort of completely turned their life around. And I know we have got a bit of an example in Ryan, which I'll talk about a little bit later, who we were hoping was going to join us today, but actually sadly for us he can't. But the good news for him is that he is in a detox facility right now, and is getting that help he needs, and is completely turning his life around. It must just be so rewarding for you to then see that, and know that, you know, every time you help a person that they're then, you know, completely change their lives basically. Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Andrew, and thank you for sharing so much about what you do and your own experiences. It's been really great to hear, and we're actually going to talk to Chantal now, who does work at Network Rail and works at Birmingham New Street Station. So thank you, Andrew, and we're going to speak to her and hear it from that side of it. It'd be brilliant to hear from her. Thank you.
Daisy, before we get Chantal on, we've actually got a question asking Andrew about whether the development work for HS2 has created additional challenges for homeless individuals, for Shelter or for Network Rail.
Ooh. Do you know much about that, Andrew? I don't know if has that sort of become a problem or not really?
Not that we've seen so far, no.
No. So potentially further down the line, but it sounds like, yeah, not at the moment. So hopefully that's answered that question. Thank you so much, Andrew. And yeah, if anybody does sort of want to know any more information, just let us know, drop us a line, and we will try and answer your questions at some point. Thank you. So I think Chantal's going to pop up on the screen in a minute. We shall see. The transition seems to take a little bit of time. Always the way. You just bear with us for a second. I imagine there's lots of work going on in the background there. Ah, brilliant. Hello. I think you're on mute just at the moment. We can't hear you right now. It looked like it came off a little bit and then it's gone back on again. We'll just, so Chantal is coming to us live from Birmingham New Street, where we've just been talking about. Now, I am not the best with technology. I don't know if anybody in the background is able to help. Are you unable to unmute? Let me see if I can unmute. Okay. Chantal, do you want to rejoin? If you rejoin the chat. Right, let's see what's happening. Let me see if I can. Can't hear you right now. No, that's fine. Do you want to, Chantal, if you'd leave and then come back again, it might work. We'll try that way. There we go. So it's always obviously difficult with technology. I'm sure a lot of you watching have been working from home at some point over the last 18 months, and it's been incredibly tricky. We still can't get to grips with Zoom. It's always changing, and Teams or whatever it is you use. But Chantal will hopefully be back in a moment. And like I said, she's joining us live from Birmingham New Street Station, which is what Andrew was talking about, where he has sort of worked with the team there, and Chantal is one of the people that he has worked with, and she's been a real force of nature, I guess, sort of having spoken from her in the station and with her colleagues to really get them to view people who are sleeping at the station in a completely different way to how they did before. So hopefully we can hear from her. We'll just try again. Somebody give me a shout if there are any problems. So no, it doesn't seem to be working. Oh no, well, we might have to, what we can do is we can ask Chantal these questions in a different way. We can potentially contact her in another way and potentially send out the answers in an email, but there she is. And she has done, just from sort of speaking to her before, I can let you know that she has done a fantastic job at just completely changing everyone who works at stations who have viewed in the past people sleeping there as a problem that they want to get rid of. And Chantal realised that actually they're people and they need help to get out of the situations they're in, and has worked really hard to be able to do that. So I really hope that we'll be able to get some answers and send them over to you all. So thank you, Chantal. It's lovely to be able to see you. And there's lots of people who are really sympathising with the Zoom problems. It's never easy, and sometimes technology just doesn't work, and there is no real reason for it. It just completely goes wrong. So we will chat to you again, Chantal. But thank you so much. Thank you. Now, something that I do want to share with all of you is somebody called Ryan, who we spoke about briefly. He was helped by the Network Rail staff at the station and Andrew, and somebody called Paddy, who has somebody called Paddy, who has previously been helped by us as well, who became one of the engagement workers that that Andrew was telling us about. So I think we're going to have a little picture of Ryan's going to pop up on the screen any minute now. So you'll be able to see what he looks like. And yeah, so that's Ryan there, and this is in his words. So he is currently in a detox facility, as I said, so he's getting the help that he needs, and he's doing absolutely brilliantly there, and that is thanks to support he's had from the team. So in his words, until I met Paddy from Shelter, my life felt pointless with no end in sight. Paddy really seemed to understand everything that I'd been through because he had his own experiences. And when he reached out, it felt like someone had thrown me a lifeline finally. He told me all about my options, ones that I never knew were even available to me. And for the first time in years, I have hope. I feel like I have a real chance to turn my life around now. I'm doing really, really well thanks to Paddy and Andrew's help. And it's blown me completely away. I feel like £1 million. I've got brand new clothes, a top phone, money, a safe and secure house, and most importantly, a chance at seeing my daughter. I will never go back now to all of that on the streets. And that's all thanks to Paddy and Andrew. They are absolute gold dust. Every single problem that was blocking my success along the way, they removed it constantly, every single time. I think that Shelter deserve an OBE, and everyone that works there does. My whole life and world outlook and possibilities have gone from absolute zero to £1 million. And that's from the guys at Shelter Birmingham's help. Alone in the wind, rain or shine, Paddy is at Birmingham New Street Station looking to help the homeless. He's always there, always helping. I never dreamed that I'd be in a position with all of this and a couple of £100 in my pocket and not want to use it to buy drugs. And now I'm in a detox, and it's helping me to remove the substitute medication that I've been on while I've been coming off the drugs. And it's all funded thanks to your guys. I could never afford the thousands of pounds it would usually cost to go into a detox centre. And not only that, but I'm now looking at uni courses once I'm out of detox. So I thank God every day to Shelter and to Paddy and Andrew and everyone at the Birmingham Hub. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I have got so, and it would have been crazy to stay on drugs and on the street. But I managed to get away from it, and my life is beyond my wildest dreams. I'm only 16 weeks off drugs, and I feel like this. So can you imagine what I will feel like in 10 years? I'm so glad I met Paddy by the grace of God on that horrible, cold, wet morning while I was withdrawing from heroin. God has a special place in heaven for Shelter guys, and I truly believe that. Once I'm detoxed, I really want to volunteer and give back a bit to Shelter. So I will be back in contact with the team then. And then my uni course. My world is a dream at the moment. Wow. So that was, quite almost emotional reading that. It just shows the difference that the work the teams do. And Ryan did really actually want to be here in person, but obviously his health and his detox has to come first, because he has come so far, and he's obviously so grateful to have that opportunity. Yeah, and people in the chat are saying that they'd hope that someone like Andrew or Paddy would be able to find them if they were sleeping rough on the streets. And as we heard from Andrew, it really is a horrible situation to be in, where it can seem like there is no end in sight. So I think having those people going down there who have lived experience and can show that it is possible makes such a difference. And you just listen to the difference it's made to Ryan's life, and the fact that he's able to see his daughter again, and even thinking about doing higher education now. And these are obviously things that a lot of us do take for granted and have been able to do. That actually, things obviously went completely wrong for Ryan, and now later in life he's turning his life around, and already sort of looking forward. I think when people are on the streets, it's just day to day. He's already looking forward and saying, what's my life going to be like in 10 years time when I'm 10 years off drugs, and living in a secure home. So exciting things ahead for Ryan, and I am really super excited to find out what happens and where his life goes from here. But that's obviously a huge success story from our team in Birmingham, and that's thanks to Andrew, to Paddy, who you haven't met but who's been mentioned quite a bit, and to Chantal and her colleagues who are helping to identify people and are welcoming people like Paddy into the station with open arms to work with them to help people. So thank you from the team from Birmingham. Such a shame we didn't get to hear from Chantal. She is absolutely brilliant, and I know she would have had a lot to say. So I'm gutted that you haven't been able to listen to her. But what we'll do is we'll try and send out an email with a few sort of questions and quotes from her. So next up, we may be running slightly early, so I'm not sure if Polly is here yet, because I am not very good at the technical stuff. That's what my amazing team in the background are dealing with. So guys, is Polly available yet for the Q&A? She is here. Brilliant. So Polly will be joining me on the screen in a moment. I think the technology is just a little bit slow. Here we go. Hello, Polly.
Hiya.
Hello. As you can probably tell, I can't see what's going on with the technology, so I'm like, who's here? What's going on?
Can you see me now, though?
Yeah, I can see you. I can hear you. It's perfect.
Good.
Like I've said a
Perfect.
few times during this, even after 18 months of working from home, still sometimes the technology doesn't work in our favour. So it's always good when it does work. But thank you for coming along today. We've had a great sort of hour or so hearing from various people across the country working in our services. I personally am blown away every time I get to speak to somebody else who does services, anything in our services. It's so complex what we do across the country. There's always different issues that they're up against that I wouldn't have even imagined. So, I think everyone's been really super inspired by them. Yeah, thank you for coming and doing this Q&A. So we have got a few questions for you from the people in the audience today.
Do you want me to look in the chat, or are you gonna?
It's okay. Yeah, I can read them out to you. I think
Cool.
I've got that up now. So somebody said, "Hi Polly, we know we're in the middle of a massive housing emergency. Do you think that we've seen the full impact of COVID on housing? And if not, when do you think the true impact will be known?"
That is such a good question.
Yeah.
So no, definitely we haven't seen the full impact yet, but I don't think we will see it. So we've had a lot of short-term actions from government to mitigate the impact of the pandemic, which have been really good. So Everyone In being a prime example of that, where homeless people were people on the streets were accommodated in hotels. We've also seen the evictions ban, which was, again, really welcome. The problem is that all of those measures have to come to an end, and the pandemic hasn't even ended, but the economic impact of the pandemic certainly hasn't ended. And, I'm really worried, about, for example, the amount of people that are having to self-isolate and can't work. That's going to be causing hardship to people in very insecure employment. So when will we see the impact of it? I actually don't know, and I wouldn't want to put a time frame on it, but we at Shelter are trying to plan for a significant increase in the need for our support going well forward. So we're projecting that well forward into certainly towards the end of the next financial year, and if not beyond that. And, the biggest worry is evictions, really. So what we're going to see probably, well, definitely, is a big increase in evictions from private renting. And then of those people, because of the total lack of social housing being provided, those people who can't afford a new private tenancy really have nowhere to go other than the waiting list. There's already well over 1 million people on the waiting list. Many of those are in highly unsuitable temporary accommodation already. So the system is already under this intense pressure, and that's only going to get worse. So I don't want to be gloomy, but we're nowhere near seeing the end of the crisis at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's such a huge problem that seems to be getting worse and worse. And like you said, I think I heard something on the radio earlier. A man rang up who his teenage son had contracted coronavirus the other day, and then him and his wife are both self-employed and have to isolate. And it's things like that, isn't it, that's still ongoing, and the loss of income that just makes it so difficult. So thank you for answering.
Now that evictions have started up again, we are going to see people. We also know that there's a huge amount of debt has built up during the pandemic, and as well, landlords do need their rent. So there's a significant increase in homelessness, I'm afraid, on the way.
Yeah, so a lot of work for our teams to be doing all across Shelter. And somebody has asked, they said they think Shelter is amazing, and thank you for all that we do to support people impacted by homelessness or bad housing. Now this is quite an interesting one. So since joining Shelter, what achievement are you most proud of? That's probably a really difficult one to pick.
Oh my word, I wasn't sort of preparing for questions that are sort of about me.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was all going to be about shelter and about the housing emergency. And okay, what am I most proud of? Gosh. Well, so pre the pandemic, I would have said what I was most proud of was our strategy at Shelter. So we launched our strategy in 2019, and it's incredibly bold and powerful. And we've recently evaluated our 10-year strategic goals, and they're still just as valid, actually, as they were when we set them in 2019. And that's a really powerful thing.
Yeah.
So I think that is probably what I'm most proud of. But I do have to say as well that I'm incredibly proud of the way that the whole organisation has dealt with the pandemic. Yeah. So we've come out of the pandemic really in quite decent shape as an organisation, which is good, because we, as I just said, we are far from seeing the impact, the peak of the impact of the pandemic on us in terms of need. And so the reason we've come out of the pandemic in good shape is because colleagues have been incredibly adaptable. They've done incredible work, worked unbelievably hard. People have changed the entire way they work really quickly as well, like pivoted really quickly. We've been very responsive, and we have incredible supporters as well, who frankly have seen us through this. So huge gratitude for that. And into the bargain, we've helped more people than we were helping before the pandemic. And also we got the government to take significant action. So, for example, the evictions ban, I would really claim that as a result of our lobbying as an organisation, and it definitely did save people from homelessness during the pandemic. So I guess maybe now that's what I'm most proud of, actually.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's, from my view, working in fundraising and sort of just sort of speaking to our members of staff in the hubs, the way they have completely changed what they're doing to still be able to help people. And it's just, what's astounding me is they've always put the clients first and found ways to make it work, even when it seemed completely impossible and you weren't allowed to leave your homes to help people. So I completely agree with that. It's been absolutely amazing. I've got another question from Anthony here. So has any progress been made in the last 10 years on the fundamental issue of homelessness being either a societal problem, an educational problem, or a government problem? Or is it a combination of these? If so, what and how can we progress?
Gosh, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot in there.
There's a lot in there. So, right. So homelessness has a lot of different forms, right? So I don't know. So if you look at rough sleeping, for example, well, no, let's just first of all say there's a really basic issue that's causing homelessness, which is that we do not have homes that people on low incomes can afford to live in. Yeah. So there are a huge number of people in this country who are not able to rent a decent home because they can't afford it, right? And that's because those homes are not being built. So that's the kind of top of the funnel of homelessness, if you like. And the biggest issue that would have the biggest impact on the housing emergency that we're in now would be to, instead of building loads of homes for luxury flats, whatever, if you're talking about London, instead of building that, we need to be building, or as well as we need to be building homes for people on low incomes. So that's one thing. So that's the kind of start of the funnel. So that is definitely a government issue, for sure. Then we've got there are then kind of other issues that feed into the kind of more acute end of that. So where you have, so then taking that baseline shortage into account, when you add to that the individual circumstances that tip people into very difficult situations in their lives, some of those do have other causes that also need to be tackled. So, for example, domestic abuse, which is one of the biggest causes of homelessness. That is, so the reason when women flee domestic abuse, they become homeless is because there aren't enough homes, but also domestic abuse as an issue needs to be tackled as well. So there are other issues that kind of feed into that. When you get to a really sharp end of homelessness, you've got about 250,000 households living in bed and breakfast hotels. That then creates significant vulnerability in those people, particularly children. So again, there are things that we can do to kind of step in and offer support there. But again, fundamentally, it comes down to the lack of homes people can afford. And then when you're looking at street homelessness, you know, again, there are other factors that come into that, definitely. But by that time, you're in a kind of cycle. So you've completely fallen through the net because there isn't anywhere you can afford to live. And you're then in a cycle where you're so vulnerable that it kind of both creates extra vulnerabilities and then those then make it harder to find somewhere to live and maintain it. And so you do end up in a kind of cycle that needs quite intensive support to break. So I don't know if that's at all answered the question about sort of multiple causes. So the answer is we need to recognise that a safe home is as fundamental a human need as education or healthcare. And that actually being part of a country where so many people cannot afford a safe home isn't acceptable. And it's our job at Shelter, big job, but it is our job to try to shift that narrative so that it puts enough pressure on government to take action.
No, definitely. And it sounds like, there's sort of like you say, the main thing that we need that would help so many people that come to us for help is more affordable housing. So absolutely.
Not affordable by the government definition.
No, actually affordable.
Affordable in terms of what people on low incomes in that locality can afford to rent.
Definitely. Thank you for that. And we've got a question from Anonymous. So this is around sort of our income and fundraising. So they said they've really enjoyed hearing about the different services that we offer in England and Scotland. It's been really insightful. How has COVID-19 impacted your income and fundraising at Shelter? They're assuming that fundraising has reduced. And if this is the case, what impact has that had on the services we've been able to provide?
So yes, COVID has impacted our income for several main reasons. So one of those was that we have a significant income stream that comes from our retail operations, so our charity shops, and they've all had to shut for big extended periods, as you obviously are aware, during the pandemic. So that's impacted our income. The other thing is the cancellation of fundraising events. So we have significant amounts of income riding on the London Marathon, for example, but also our own fundraising events, which have had to be cancelled. We have, on our fundraising team, I mean, and I'm not saying this because some of them are on the call, we actually have the best fundraising team in the charity sector. And I'm not exaggerating, we totally do. So our team have mitigated the impact on our income a lot. And we've had really so much help from, so for example, in the first lockdown, we launched an emergency appeal and we had our corporate partners, so like Nationwide, I've forgotten now who else, and HSBC donating TV advertising slots to us, which we've never done that. And they managed, so we managed to mitigate that loss of income due to how amazing basically our supporters are, both individuals and corporates. But yes, we have seen an impact on our income. It hasn't led to a reduction in service provision because we reprioritised our resources to ensure that we kept our services going. We focused on our emergency helpline and really increased the resource there because that was where the greatest amount of need was coming from at the time. And we also drew on our reserves. So we were very fortunate to come into the pandemic with healthy reserves. We have spent, so we've shaken the magic money tree. The tree's still there, but we could do without having to shake it again. It might not yield so much fruit next time. But we did draw on our reserves and specifically used that money to keep our services going. What we're doing now is trying to kind of make up for that lost income. And at some point, you know, I'm hoping, gonna come out of the sort of dip in income. So at the moment, the signs of that are looking quite good, but you know, we need to keep the recognition of the issue of homelessness really high out there, so that people still see supporting shelter as something that they want to do and as something that there's a sort of urgent need to do.
Yeah.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, it does. It does. And from, you know, working in fundraising here myself, like you said, our supporters are absolutely amazing. And, you know, I did say sort of at the beginning of this that it's blown me away the way that people have come up with some really weird, wonderful, wacky ideas to be able to fundraise at a time when in this past year you haven't even been able to leave your house. It's been it's been absolutely amazing, and
it's been really inspiring, and it really makes, I know for me anyway, I feel a huge sense of responsibility to use that resource as effectively as possible and make sure that we really are focusing on the right things. So but we are enormously grateful.
Yeah, absolutely. And somebody's asked, this is quite an interesting one actually, because I think there are a lot of misconceptions around people who are homeless. What do you think are the biggest misconceptions around people who are homeless? Do we think sometimes people would blame them rather than, you know, it sort of could happen to anyone really, couldn't it?
Indeed, yeah. Well, I think the biggest misconception that I hear about people who are homeless, which is that they're not working.
Right, yeah.
And actually, most people in temporary accommodation are working. And even I've met rough sleepers who are working.
Yeah.
And I've met Uber drivers who sleep in their cars. That's common, very common. So that would count as being homeless. So that's one of the misconceptions. I think the other one is generally around that people, and you get this with, I've worked in several organisations where the people that we support are very vulnerable, and there is there's definitely a perception among some people that they sort of bring it on themselves, and that, you know, well, if I was in that situation, I wouldn't end up homeless. And the answer to that is, well, you might not, but you probably don't know. And so I think there's that. I think there's there are some quite difficult ones as well. So to have a more sort of nuanced answer to that. So I think there's also how far do you can acknowledge that someone has a problem.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to blame them for it.
No, yeah.
For example, I mean, alcohol misuse is common among rough sleepers. That's true. Is it surprising when you think about the danger of rough sleeping? I mean, the average age that rough sleepers die is 47 for men and 43 for women.
That's so young.
This is an incredibly dangerous environment.
Yeah.
And so the fact that people cope with that danger in different ways, and sometimes by sort of self-medicating, as a psychologist would put it, isn't that surprising. So I think the biggest misconception to me is that homelessness is an individual failure rather than a societal and policy failure. So I would say it's a failure of how we run the country rather than, and I don't mean that in a party political way, because the lack of investment in housing has been going on for decades.
Yeah, years and years. Yeah. No, that's
Excuse
very
me,
true.
Slurping on my Diet Coke, but it's really hot.
It is so hot today. I said at the beginning, people might be joining us in their living rooms, but hopefully they're joining us from their gardens, because it is very warm today, and that's
it's very hot in my kitchen.
Yeah. And well, like you were just saying about the conditions that rough sleepers are in, quite often if they're very cold, or even today like very hot, alcohol might be something that will help sort of numb that, I guess, which is it's obviously awful conditions to be rough sleeping, or to be cramped in a 1-bedroom room with your whole family.
Indeed.
Yeah, so I think that's so when it is nice weather, it's very nice for most of us, but quite often not for anyone else, not for people who are on the streets, sorry. And then we've got a question around government policy. So do you have good relationships with Mlclg and officials who work on government policy to end homelessness in England?
Yes. So I meet with ministers and officials at MHCLG quite regularly, and our team meet with officials even, so I mainly do the ministerial meetings, but our team meet with officials a lot. Yes, what we're trying to do is get the government to do things that currently they're not minded to do.
Right.
So yes, we do have a really good relationship. It is about there's a balancing act between that relationship being positive and making those arguments, having research to back them up, which we absolutely do. And then on the other hand, public campaigning is really important, because it's public opinion that ultimately influences government. So both of those things are equally important. But short answer, yes, we do have good relationships in MHCLG and in other parts of government as well.
Good, because that's so important. And like you said, the pressure from the public, which is why I know we've got a lot of our campaigning supporters watching today. So thank you so much for all that you do, because every time you put on that pressure or sign a petition, it makes such a big difference to that.
Totally.
And then
the other thing is, sorry to say,
no, that's fine.
Governments listen to power. So our supporters are absolutely vital in that equation, because they will listen to Shelter, because they know we've got hundreds of thousands of people who are part of our supporter network and database. And that's a big part of why we are able to be listened to. So it is absolutely vital, and it's both sides of that are equally important. That relationship building, but that power base is vital.
We couldn't sort of make the impact we do without that power behind it. And then we've got a question from Steve, who says, you mentioned the life expectancy of rough sleepers is tragically short. Are you able to tell us a little bit about what the main cause of this is, and to what extent they could be resolved by adequate housing?
It could totally be resolved by adequate housing. So the causes of it are multiple. General poor health is the cause of it. So people who are on the streets are very susceptible to illness. They are very susceptible to the cold and the heat. So both of those things are quite dangerous. And if you're in poor health anyway, then they're more dangerous. There are self-harming elements to that as well. So suicide is not uncommon, but also drug and alcohol misuse, obviously, are dangerous for your health and can be fatal. So there's those things. There's also the risk of violence, and assault is very high among rough sleepers. So I don't mean against each other, but I mean from the public. That's particularly true of women. So although that sometimes then leads to death directly, but it also, there's also the issue about not having healthcare. So people who do get injuries, for example, those injuries are much more likely to become much more serious and ultimately life-threatening because they're not treated properly. And so access to proper healthcare is really an issue. And the reason I say would housing make a difference, well, yes, so there's a intervention called Housing First, which we are part of in several locations. I don't know if you've heard about it today already, but basically the kind of premise of it is that instead of saying, oh, you've got to be stable and not using drugs and not misusing alcohol and or sort out all your problems before you get somewhere to live, that Housing First says, no, give someone stable to live and then put that support in.
Yeah.
And it has been very successful. So that's kind of demonstrated that actually a safe and secure home is the sort of first principle of ending homelessness. It's not that difficult. I mean, it should be obvious because homelessness does literally mean without a home. But you know, it is important to remember that, you know, a home is the answer ultimately.
Yeah, definitely. And Grace has said that it's been really interesting to hear about all the really complex issues around homelessness tonight. But in general, a lot of society does still see homelessness in a really simplistic way: drug abuse, alcohol abuse, things like that. How do you think we can get that more complex message across to people? Because you know, Grace says that the mainstream media don't really seem ready to help in that process.
So, I mean, we do. So we, several times a year, we publish statistics about homelessness, and we always mean wider homelessness, not only rough sleeping. And the case studies that we use to illustrate those are usually people in temporary accommodation, for example, rather than people who are on the streets. So we do work quite hard to get that message across. I mean, I do agree that there is still a conception about homelessness being rough sleeping. I mean, to be completely frank, that isn't helped at government level, because the government's commitment to ending homelessness, actually what they mean by that is ending rough sleeping. Obviously that isn't ending homelessness, and in fact it isn't even preventing rough sleeping, because without tackling wider homelessness, you're not going to stop the smaller number that ultimately fall through the net and become rough sleepers. So but you know, we are making every effort we can to try to broaden that discourse and be clear about what homelessness really means. And everyone can help that. So like, what I would love our supporters to do as well is like take that message out there. So just when somebody talks about homelessness, just make sure that they are talking about the kind of total problem. Because it is really important. It isn't to deny that rough sleeping isn't important, of course it is, but it isn't the whole picture.
No, and I think to those of you who are watching, obviously you heard from Rachel about the work she does with families, and from Harriet, all the different legal problems people come to her with. So definitely try and if people talk to you about homelessness, try and tell them those stories that you've heard today, because that is what homelessness looks like, as well as people sleeping on the streets. And we've just got a few minutes left, but we've got a couple of questions. Now, this one is, I think something that I've thought about a lot throughout the past 18 months. So they've said it feels like a lot of this pandemic has felt very privileged in the sense that there's an assumption people will have somewhere to work from home and have an access to a computer and the internet. Do you believe that the pandemic has kind of focused people's minds a bit on the importance of home and space as well, I guess?
I really hope so.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I mean, there was a bit of a, right at the very beginning of the pandemic, I was part of a discussion program, and all of us on the panel were asked, is COVID going to be a great leveler? And I was like, you are joking. No. And, you know, it's absolutely been the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And I think people have been very grateful for the ability to work from home, having a decent space to work in. And so we at Shelter are really hoping that it has kind of made people more acutely aware of the importance of home, and then the sort of desperate situation of people who don't have a home. And particularly people whose home has become unstable as a result of the pandemic. And I've just seen something flashing up in the comments, which is so true, which is that a lot of people have been tipped into reliance on benefits who've never had that experience before in their lives, and have suddenly realised what a tiny, tiny amount people's benefits are expected to live on. And I think that has been a real shock to some people who sort of never expected to be in that position. So good point there. I'm not actually really looking at the chat, but I just saw that flashing up.
Just saw it pop up. But that's really true, isn't it? I think a lot of people who haven't been, well, some people who haven't ever had to use benefits in their lives think that people, they're just getting all this money for free, but actually it's really difficult to live on that.
It's extremely difficult.
We've just got a couple of minutes left, so a couple of really quick questions. Somebody has said, do you think the issue with housing will ever be resolved given it's so huge and complex, and there doesn't seem to be a government that's interested in seriously doing anything about it? Do you think, I think we can.
So I wouldn't be in this job if I wasn't one of life's optimists.
Yeah.
Because it just wouldn't be a tolerable job to be doing otherwise. I believe that we can move the dial on housing, but not without harnessing public opinion in a really significant way.
Yeah.
And that's what we are building up our strategy to do. And we are going to need everyone's help with that. So do I believe that traditional kind of lobbying techniques and going to meetings with government and alongside all the other charities, which I do all the time, do I believe that that is seriously going to move the dial on housing policy? No. But do I believe that public opinion can do that? Yeah, I do.
Yeah, brilliant. So hopefully everybody watching today can go away and talk about everything. And the very last question.
I'm really sorry about the background noise, by the way.
No, that's fine.
I'm in the kitchen and I'm not the only person in it, as I think you can.
It is dinner time, isn't it? It is dinner time. People have got to eat. So one last question is, what would you say to people who are watching today, or people who they may go on to speak to, are 3 things that people could do to help Shelter and get involved in our work somehow?
So first of all, look on our Fight for Home page on our website, because that will tell you how to join the Fight for Home in all kinds of different ways. So I would say do that. So there's signing up to our campaigns and joining our campaigns. When you do that, please tick the box to say we can contact you, because otherwise we won't be able to get in touch with you at a later date and ask you what we actually want you to do. So there's that. Obviously, and I would say this, but donate, that is really, really important. People who fundraise for Shelter are making an enormous difference. So that would be the other way. And then I think the third thing I would say, and we've covered this a bit already, is let's just start the conversation about the real answer to the housing crisis, and about the fact that so many of our fellow citizens cannot afford somewhere decent to live, and the fact that we think that's a problem. And you know, we ought to be as shocked by the fact that, so over the last year, we actually have, this year compared to last year, we have 22,500 fewer social homes than we had this time last year. So we're actually losing the housing that people on low incomes can actually afford to live in. And that is the cause, ultimately, of homelessness. So it's about really spreading that narrative, because people don't want to talk about social housing, but we have to, because it is the answer. And what we mean by social housing is housing for local people, where the rent is pegged to local incomes, not to the housing market. It's not, that's what we mean.
Brilliant. Well, that is a great note to end on. I think there's 3 things that people can really think about and take away from that, and go and chat to people about what we're doing, and the reality of homelessness and bad housing isn't just what a lot of people think it is. So thank you so much, Polly, and thank you everyone who asked
That's
questions.
all right. Thank you for great questions. I'm
really
sorry
good
I probably
questions
didn't get to them all.
That is absolutely brilliant. Thank you. And again, everyone that's watching, we're going to wrap up now, but thank you so much for coming along, and thank you so much for your continued support. I hope it's been really interesting for you today to hear about all the work that we're doing, that as I said at the beginning, we wouldn't be able to do anything that we've spoken about today if we didn't have the support from people like you. So thank you so much. A big thanks to my colleagues in the background who've been doing all the technical stuff. This wouldn't have stayed up and all sorted if it was down to me alone. So I'm very grateful for them. And thank you. Do get in touch with us if you do want to help us in any way, or you want any more information about anything. Thank you, Polly, and have a great evening in the sunshine, everybody. Thanks. Bye-bye.